Okay, so we have recording and live transcript going. And so we will get started. So it is like 7:02. This is the April 12th, 2022 meeting of the LBC. We have a moderate agenda today. We have all three commissioners are participating, along with our Red and David volunteers that are extremely helpful to us. So thank you. So our agenda today is we'll open up for public comment. We have 3 sets of meeting minutes we need to review and approve. We have at least 1 set of bills. We will then talk about the Stow Rec Commission's request for our support for their boat rental. And then we'll have discussion and updates and action items for the lake refill, the weed treatment, and Healthy Lake Boone initiative. And then we will spend a little bit of time on our general prep, other prep for the beginning of the active season on the lake. Then old business, new business, and date of our next meeting, and then we will adjourn. So thank you those who are on. We are going to go ahead and get started, and we will open up let's see, we will open up initially for public comment. So did we have anyone on that wants to raise something to the commission?
Hi, yes.
Hi,
Good
go
evening.
ahead.
Hi, good evening. So we are, we'd love to get a conversation going about potentially having daily courtesy quiet hours on the lake before 8 a.m.
So could we have your name and where you live on the lake, since we can't see you and we don't have a name?
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely. My name is Lucy. We live on the second basin.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure we had that. So go ahead, Lucy. You have an interest in a future discussion about kind of voluntary quiet hours in the morning.
Yeah, we we understand Sundays 2 to 6 at the lake is quiet hours, and that's a definite rule. And we're not looking for anything to that extreme. I think just general courtesy before 8 a.m. Before the season really begins, I think would be maybe something that we can talk about and discuss, and hopefully people would honor that. And we'd just be interested to see what folks' thoughts were on that.
Okay, so that's something you would like for us to put on a future agenda at this point?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, and I don't want to just push that off, but Conray or Dan, any other input on that? We'll add that as a new business.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
No, I'll talk about that if we put it on an agenda item. We've been down that route before multiple times.
Okay. So Lucy, it looks like Rick, Dick, do you have also a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that at the last meeting, I guess it was I've forgotten which one, but I want to say I thought Red did an excellent job in presenting the activities of the HBLI. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to increase his pay, but he did.
You're gonna double my pay.
Forget it. Screw it. No. But at any rate, he did a good job, and I want it to be noted.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for that notation, and we completely agree with you.
Yeah, I absolutely echo that. Ed Red's been doing a great job.
Excellent. All right, so Lucy, I'm happy to have you stay on. We will add that as a future agenda item. And so that we can, spend some actual time talking, and other folks, other folks, the public would have advanced, kind of notice that that's a discussion point. And so that's why we would put it on a future meeting.
Just as a
That's
quick,
great. Thank
just-
you.
just a quick note there, state law and the rules on the lake state that, sunrise is when the lake opens up for any type of activity above headway speed only. And pretty much the boaters, except for the fishermen, kind of use 7 o'clock as their courtesy hour. The off-lake boats that show up, very early to go fishing, they don't make a lot of noise either, but they never gonna abide by any of that, because state law is state law.
Thanks, Conway. Okay, do we have any other public comment? Yes,
Yeah,
David.
yeah, I have two things from the Lake Boone Association. One is that we will be publishing a Lake Boone Gazette, and we'll probably have to close the press for publication the middle of May. So, or probably the first week in May, really. So if you have input from the LBC that you'd like to see in print, it would be good to get that to me probably by the end of the first week in May.
Okay,
And I'm thinking that we should publish the revised Lake Boone rules, since we have a lot of new residents on the lake, and some of the old ones aren't going to realize that they've been revised. So I think we'll probably include that as part of it.
Do you hear this?
I'm not paying attention.
The other item is that the annual meeting for the LBA will be held, we're planning for June 5th at the Stow Pompasiticate Community Center. That's a Sunday evening at 7 p.m. in person. That's the plan. COVID could do anything and we could end up back on Zoom again, but at least we have the place reserved, and we have plans to be able to meet there. And a large presentation will be on the Healthy Lake Boone initiative.
So comment on the Gazette, Chris, this is probably you. For years, I used to do we used to call the Commissioner's Corner on the Gazette.
Yep.
And we would just write up a short article on Commissioner's Corner stuff, what was going on in the lake, and et cetera.
yeah, and that's what we did last year. I wrote
Yeah.
something up and got that out to you guys to kind of proof and add some information. So, yeah, I'll do that again, and we can look at that at the next meeting, or you probably don't even need to. We probably can just kind of do a quick review email and go with that. So
Yeah, I think,
by early May, you need to get that to Dave.
And what's important is what someone said, you did it last year. David said we have a lot of new members on the lake, and new people in the lake. It doesn't need to change a lot. It just needs to update and be put out there.
Right.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right, any other public comment? All right,
I just want to add about that, the Commissioner's Corner. I don't know when we'll have a meeting, and I think timeliness is important. So I agree that if you just do a draft, there's nothing controversial in there, presumably, that requires a vote. So, we're happy to look at it, but you can just go ahead with it from my perspective.
Yep.
And thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, so we are going to move on to meeting minutes. So we have 3 sets of meeting minutes, January 27th, February 3rd, and March 1st. I think, I've already provided my input, and Dan, that's been incorporated. So I'm fine with the 3 sets of notes.
Motion to
Ray, how about yourself?
I am too. So motion to approve the 3 sets of minutes as submitted by Dan. Or submitted and amended, I guess.
I
Okay.
second.
Okay. And do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that is all 3 of us, so that passes unanimously. And Dan, thank you again for taking that on. I know it's very, very hard to listen and participate and catch all the minutes too, so.
Yeah, and let me just, I don't know if this is an appropriate time to comment on, I posted the previous ones to our website, and I'll quickly post these. You have asked Chris for, we're doing a summary a year, we have to present those. Do you want to discuss that at all, or I don't know where that fits in
Yeah, we
this?
can talk about that in old business, Dan,
Old
because that's
business,
just an
okay.
administrative thing we have to do every year.
Yeah, okay.
That's just part of what we need, so we'll
Yeah.
just talk about it there.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just make my notations here. Okay. So thank you for that. We're all caught up now on those. All right, next is open bills for payment. So we do have 3 months worth of our subscription for the Zoom. Our Zoom account is $14.99 per month. So this is the April, March, and February for a total of, what is that? 40.
$44.97.
That's it, $44.97. So do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the Zoom bills to reimburse Chris as submitted for $44.97.
I'll second.
Excellent. And do we have any further discussion on that? All right, hear none. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is all of us, so that has passed. All right, thank you. I will submit those. Okay, next on our agenda is the Stow Rec Commission. So we received a letter from Laura. I don't know, is Laura on? No, sounds not, wasn't really sure. She may not have been able to attend. So we do have a letter from Laura requesting, again, our support for them to continue their Camp Stow boating program, which does include kayaking and canoeing, and to continue their boat rental program, which generally runs when the Stow camp's not using the boats, but while the beach is open. And it covers kayaks, canoes, and paddle boards. So her notation on this, they currently have 5 canoes, 6 kayaks. They would like to consider expanding that with the purchase of 2 stand-up boards to be used during the camp program and for rent, and used by the lifeguards. So let's see. I guess, yes. So I know they made this request also last year, but they didn't have the funds to actually buy the stand-up paddle boards and equipment. So they are hoping this year that that is possible. And they also made a notation in the letter that this summer they will have access to the safety boat, which according to them, formerly known as the police boat. So I have not heard that myself through the police department, Mike, but that may be true. So that may be the.
What does that mean? I thought the public could not use the police boat. Conrad, you've been quite clear about that over the years.
Absolutely. I mean, I wasn't allowed to drive it.
Yeah, so it sounds to me, now, Connie, you were at the meeting where there was discussion anyway. I know discussion about, sharing of boats and whatever. At that point, do you think that coming out of that, the expectation was that it would no longer be kind of labeled as a police boat at all?
That would have to be true in order for anybody else to use it.
Yeah,
So no, I don't remember that. I do remember Mike talking about, Police Chief Mike talking about making it a safety boat and being used by multiple agencies. But to my remembrance, that did not include the rec committee. That was really fire and police.
yeah,
He wanted one that Hudson Fire would use, Stow Fire would use, we would use, and the Stow Police would use. So we ended up with a single boat in the lake.
yeah.
For a lot of reasons, that didn't work. And I don't remember any discussion about, the rec committee using it. So that's all new to me.
I mean,
Okay.
who of rec commission would be driving the boat? I mean,
Especially-
you got a bunch
Yeah,
of
so-
teenage kids there.
Right. I would assume that they would have to have someone designated and gone through the training in order to do that. So I think that,
It's more than training. I mean, it is training, but it's also age. There's a whole bunch of rules, state rules around that.
sure.
Yeah, I would think that if we're going to approve this, I would recommend that we approve it, but not that item. That any approval of that item has to have clearance from Mike.
So from a safety point of view, right? Go a little bit deeper, Dan. You need a chase boat if you're going to start running a lot of stuff. If something goes wrong out there and the lifeguards are on the beach, they're not going to get all the way over the dam where someone's in trouble. So, I spent a lot of time on the Charles River and community boating. Whenever the shells are out there, there's always a safety boat out there. Whenever the sailboats are out there, there's always a safety boat out there. So, if we're going to expand the rental program to make it bigger and bigger, you've got to have a chase boat that's able to be used, by the rec committee.
And are they gonna move it and park it at the beach rather than where it parks now?
Well, that's the police boat. And to my knowledge, right now, the police boat has not been upgraded. It's the same boat. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't-
know.
Isn't that what they're talking about when they say the safety boat? They mean the police boat?
Well, they mean the boat, which has been the police boat. Now, whether or not they are not going to, label it as a police boat going forward, in which case then theoretically someone else, other authorized folks could utilize it. But
Well, then
yeah,
I'll restate my comment that I think we should not approve that portion of this request.
Yeah.
That that requires further clarification at our next meeting from Mike and the rec commission to make sure that that's okay.
Yeah, I pretty much agree, Red. The other half of that is if they're gonna, if they're gonna run a boat rental program, there has to be a safety issue. How do you deal with accidents? And if you can't get to someone out in the lake, and I'll tell you that the current police boat is not something you want to put an amateur in. The motor doesn't run very well. It's a big, heavy boat. There's a lot of issues with that boat. Not the shortest of which the boat is waterlogged. That makes it difficult to handle. But I forget who said it, but you can't have a bunch of people running around in that particular boat or that class boat without, well, first of all, if they're under 18, they require a state certificate anyways. They've had to gone they have to get the certificate from the state that's saying it's okay to operate a boat over 25 horses. The right way for the rec committee to do this is to have a little boat with a little motor that's a lot more easy to handle, number one, and number two, doesn't have, it's under 25 horses. So Yeah, so I like what you said, Dan. I might extend that to the fact if you're gonna expand the rental program, you've got to provide a chase boat.
A whole game plan defined. Where is it? Who's running it? What are the rules?
Yeah, all of that.
Yep. So Dan, one of the things that you mentioned was not, supporting expanding the rental program. So
I'm only saying that the portion that deals with use of the safety boat is
Okay.
where that's the part that we're not comfortable
Okay.
with.
Okay, well, I want to just make sure we kind of tease out of it. So I understand that part. So Conray, again, similar to what we've approved in past years, they did not have a safety boat, right? They didn't have a chase boat. And we did approve it, or I should say, we gave our support for it. To the selectmen. Are we feeling like we're in a different position now where you would not want to support them having the program?
I support the program. I don't support expanding the program. They want to add, what, 4 more boats?
They want to add 2 more according to the letter, just
The
2
stand-up boat.
paddle
2
boards.
paddle boards.
Paddle boards.
I've got mixed emotions on the whole thing. I spend a lot of time on the water, and safety is really important, and they are on the edge of safety over there.
Yeah.
They're not, I don't know about life jackets. I don't know how, there's just a whole bunch of issues that I don't understand how the rec committee is dealing with them. So, let's just take a simple example. Let's say someone rents a canoe and takes off to the second basin. Well, they're not supposed to. What if they do? What do? There's nothing they can do. All they can do is hope the boat comes back someday.
Can we table this and say that we'd like Laura and the police commissioner to join in the meeting so we make sure that these issues are effectively dealt with?
We certainly can.
I like tabling it. There's one other piece of data which we should get. I know Mike has been chairing a commission on how to, to find a new safety officer for the lake. So, if we have a new safety officer in the lake, I think that safety officer should be involved in permitting the rentals. And I don't know how far down that road they are.
I believe, Conrad, I believe that one has been appointed. And I apologize. I heard that, and then I meant to follow up and check that out. But I heard that there was a discussion at Stow Selectmen's meeting a couple of weeks ago, and that there was in fact a gentleman that was appointed into that role for the Stow Police Department. So I will follow up and get that information, but I agree with you. It would make sense for safety officer to be part of a discussion about the how to handle the boating rentals.
Did I see that Dick Gelbke had his hand up?
Well, I did. As part of the Great Unwashed, I'm really wondering why this isn't a Recreation Department issue more than yours. I understand the role of the commission, but it seems to me they need to do a lot more homework. Enough said.
Definitely.
To
There's no plan.
answer your question, Dick, the selectmen have to issue the permit. They look to us for the recommendation.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we are choosing to defer
Table.
on our support, and we would like to see at a next meeting, Laura and
Actually, Laura, I think, has just joined in.
Hi, guys. I'm so sorry I'm jumping in late.
Okay.
My alarm didn't go off. Sorry about that, but I
Hey, you want a cup of coffee?
I know, right? Sorry about that.
That's all right. So Laura, we were just about to move on, but but
Okay.
maybe we can get some things answered. So based on your letter, there's a couple of things. One thing that you mentioned was that the rec department's going to have access to the safety boat.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what Chief Solis is like gonna call it, but it will be between recreation, the fire and police.
And so you've made arrangements that the rec department is going to be able to drive that boat?
Yep, I have to take a course, and we're replacing the motor and getting it detailed with different wording on it instead of police.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly when that's gonna finish up. It's kind of in his hands. He's leading the project, so I'm just some of them.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm just some of the money.
Yep.
The only one that would drive it, Laura? For rec?
Well, the agreement that we've talked about is over 21 that has taken the course. So they would have to take the course, which is online, in order to drive. And obviously I'd have to feel comfortable with it.
You know, well, thank you, Laura. First of all, it's great that you do this program and that you're being concerned about safety boat and all of that. The question that we've discussed here is whether anybody who's not a certified police officer can actually use that boat. And Mike, of course, is the chief police, so it's his domain to say, but
Right.
Even when we've asked if commissioners can use that boat, the answer is no, because we're not police. Even though we have harbor responsibilities and so on. So
Sure.
I guess I'm not clear, maybe Mike has done some further thinking on this, but under what authority you'd be able to actually even use that police boat?
Well, because it's not going to be a police boat.
Right.
They're rebranding it basically to call it, I don't know what the exact wording, but like I said, like a safety boat or, a community use. I have no clue exactly what he's going to call it. We had talked about it a while ago. And so the three departments are pitching in to get a new motor to be able to do that. And another thing, they don't use it very often. So they want it to be used. So that's why they feel good about having us there using it.
Where would it be parked?
I'm going to keep it over where they are. They haven't had any kind of safety issues. He did say if I wanted to park it at closer to the beach, I could, but I think since we haven't had any problems, I'm going to keep it there unless we need it.
How big a motor?
I'd have to ask Mike. I can't really remember offhand.
There's two issues around boats. I mean, one is you take the course, but then there's this thing called experience.
Yeah.
Boats aren't like cars.
Yeah, I have a boat of my own right out back here. So I'm pretty well versed. But yeah, that's why I wouldn't just allow anybody to use it. Like I said, it's really going to be like a pilot program to make sure that it's going to work for everybody. So I think it's only going to be used in the case of emergency. We're not talking pulling kids on skis or anything, or even letting them in the boat unless it was a safety issue.
Well,
Full-time coverage?
Say that again?
Would you have full-time coverage of somebody at the beach that could drive it for safety?
No, probably only during camp hours, most likely.
Well, I'm going to
During the hours that you're renting or just during camp?
To be honest, I haven't really decided because I don't know when we'll actually get the boat.
Yep.
Or get use of it, because I know that Mike's working out all those details. I wish I had more information off the top of my head. I didn't know I'd be speaking on that.
No, Mr. Chief Butch.
Say that again?
Yes.
I think it was just somebody speaking.
Yeah, I think that was not.
Yeah. So I'd like to repeat my suggestion that I think
Can't hear you.
that this is potentially an important and useful idea and helps with safety. However, I think we really need to visit this with Mike. Because it has broader implications for the lake. In fact, we've considered whether commissioners can use that boat, and the answer has always been no, for many understandable reasons. And now, and we've been, Conray's been our lead liaison with Mike about this. But I think it's worth. I think, here it is April, and if we can have a meeting in May or something to go over this, your season hasn't really yet begun yet. So if we have that time to do that, I think it's an important, broader discussion we need to have.
I would just say that, isn't it two different topics, though? I mean, you guys have approved my rental plan as is for the last several years. I was just adding in the fact that, because you always ask each year, what am I doing for safety? Are we going to have the life jackets? How do they get, alerted? So I was just throwing that in there to be like, hey, here's another level that we're trying to get to. So I mean, I have no problem waiting. Like you said, we got another, couple months to go, but I do think it's two different options.
Sure, and Laura, I agree with you. The connection point, I think, as we were going through your request, was you're looking to add. So you're looking to add 2 stand-ups. So I think that it's growing, as the program grows, those concerns we have around safety and monitoring get stronger and stronger. So last year, we had some reservations. We talked through those, and we, kind of said okay. And I think, looking to add the 2 stand-up paddle boards without us understanding what additional safety precautions there are going to be and limitations on where those paddle boats go, because those are a lot different than even kayaks and canoes. People tend to jump off them and swim in the water, and it is a different kind of animal. They have to be wearing their life jackets the entire time. So I think that's kind of where we maybe hit a tipping point.
Sure.
For some of the commissioners, it's just that now we're looking to add even more. So it raised the question again of safety, which, it would be great that you would have some additional capabilities there, but and then we wanted to understand just a little bit more about those.
Yeah, and the separate and second issue is about redefining the role of the police boat in the lake. If it's truly transitioning into a different one that others, Laura or whoever else it is, can use, I think we really need to have that understanding with Mike.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. I don't think that is necessarily, doesn't impact what Laura's request for us to support the boat rental program. So yes, it is something we need to pursue around kind of what is that, all of that rebranding mean, who's going to be the safety officer, which I think has been established, those kinds of things. But
doesn't Laura's request explicitly say that she would use the safety boat?
It simply says that yes, it does.
And that's the part that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Laura, what do you do if you rent a canoe? You live as people to the first basin, right?
Yeah.
To the beach. What do you do if they disappear? What if they decide to go down to basin 2 or even 3?
Well, I mean, we keep a track of the time. So if after a certain amount of time we go looking for them, or we would call the police to, in the past, we would call the police to go looking for them, but now that, Lee's not going to be there anymore, and we'll be able to have access to the boat to go look, or still call the police and have them go look, whatever's easier. I don't live close by, so it's not like I can just go do it whenever, but I'm typically there during camp hours.
Yeah, I have another concern. I spend a lot of time on the Charles River.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, recreational boating and the rental programs don't exist very well together. If you go down the Charles River on a Saturday afternoon, there's 50,000 kayaks on it, most of the people have never been in a boat, never mind understanding the basic rules of the road. So, as we add more rentals to the lake, that problem will get worse. I've had canoe people canoe right in front of a powerboat and say, hey, we got the right of way. Well, actually, they don't. The rules are more sophisticated than that. They don't have the right to force a deep draft boat into the shallows, for instance. So, it gets complicated as you have recreational boating and recreational renters start to mix. And that's, those issues, you're only going to rent at certain times, right?
Yeah, we usually don't rent until after camp hours, well, after 3 o'clock and then on the weekends. And so, but I mean, really, guys, if the sticking point is I do want you to be, I do want to have you speak to Mike because he does have way more information about the process with the boat and everything like that. But if the paddle boards is the sticking point, we'll just use them for our camp program, not, we won't rent those out, that they'll last longer that way
Yeah.
in my eyes,
I guess
So,
I would frame it a little bit differently. It's not that we're saying that's a bad thing. We want to reject that. I mean, we haven't voted, so I can't. I'm only speaking for myself. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it does raise the issues of safety and an opportunity to revisit those, as well
sure.
as the question of the safety boat. And for those reasons, if we could defer on your request
Sure.
until the next meeting, invite Mike in, have a deeper discussion about safety issues and about the boat, then we'll have enough information to approve or request changes or whatever that might be.
That sounds good to me.
Well said, Red. Dan.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Well,
So
thank you for your time, guys.
Yeah, so
And I'll look, yeah.
we're going to defer it. We will be back in touch with when our next meeting is, which we'll schedule hopefully, with the input of yourself and Mike and the safety officer. So that hopefully we can have, one conversation and get through this.
Perfect.
And we also really want to thank you, Laura. You work very hard. You do a great job taking care of us all at the lake and making sure people are enjoying themselves and safe. So we really appreciate that. And we don't want you to think it's any questioning your, it's just this does raise some issues. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. No, and I'd rather take care of that now than it be, just sprung on you guys. I actually didn't know that you guys weren't in the loop, so to speak. So I think it'd be good for all of us to get together and clear up and make sure we all understand what our roles will be and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So, all right. So I'll wait for to hear more from you.
Chris,
I appreciate your time.
that's a good point about in the loop part.
Yep.
If Mike in fact has appointed a safety officer, he should have told us.
Yeah, I don't know that he has.
Okay. Well, I will follow up with Mike.
We're back to our meeting now.
I will follow up with Mike and we'll get a little more information and we will set up time to address it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Yeah, Chris, I'm a little disappointed if Mike hasn't, that we don't know what's going on. I mean, if Mike is doing this stuff, he should be telling us.
Yep. As I said, I'll reach out to Mike to find out and we'll get some time set up.
Yep, because Mike has always been very communicative and very supportive, very helpful. So it seems like a little bit of a gap there.
Yeah, if in fact it is.
I do not want to throw Mike under the bus. Mike is great.
Yeah.
It's just the commission, we are the commission. We have certain rights, certain responsibilities on the lake, and, we need to know what's going on.
Right. Agreed.
And I worry about a high horsepower boat being driven by people that aren't experienced.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we are going to defer that. As I said, I have the action item to follow up with Mike. And we will we'll look for timing for our next meeting that kind of accommodates everybody to have a variety of discussions there around safety and boat rentals. Okay.
Good.
All right. All right, then, moving on. So our next agenda item is just a general one around the lake refill, weed treatment plans at this point. Lake Boone initiative update or as appropriate. So I think the refill is completed.
Yeah, why don't we, what I was thinking is having Dave comment about the refill, Red about the weed
Weeds.
treatment, and I'll deal with the Healthy Lake Boone initiative. All right, does that sound okay?
I'd like to make one comment on that, though. I think this is the first year in a while that we actually had the lake refilled by April 1st. So Dan, I know you were driving that. Maybe-
Well, actually, Dave's really the, you know, the master here. So and it just turned out well, I'll let you, Dave, you talk.
Great, thanks. Dave?
Yeah, well, Dan instructed the highway department to get the boards in, and they put in one, and then it sat that way for a while, and it was running over the first board. They finally put the second one in, but the lake was full. It ran over the top board by March 23rd. And so another couple inches above that in that following week, it definitely made it by April 1st. No fooling.
Excellent.
And then we also took samples as the order of conditions calls for phosphorus and for, actually the order of conditions calls for turbidity. We measure total suspended solids, which is actually a better measurement anyway. And they both showed non-detectable levels. So the water quality going to the Assabet was very good. In that
Excellent.
regard.
All right. Thank you, Dave, and thank you for the work you do on being our our water, both water quality and also the refill and pull down kind of monitor.
Well, we're known as damn fools here.
Oh, I was going to call you level-headed.
Excellent. Okay, so then Red, you want to talk a little bit about where we are with solitude?
Sure. Sure, we had two meetings last week with each of the Comms, Stow, then Hudson, basically telling them our game plan for this year, which is this is the year for the heavy sonar treatment, and we propose that we start that late in the month, and that would still also be subject to some booster treatments over the course of the year, spread out several weeks apart. And then we would do dicot during the year also. So that plan was approved by both Comms. Again, the target date for the first sonar was late this month. Actually, today I took the Solitude crew out in the boat. We dragged a rake around the third and the fourth basin, and we found what Dominic suspected we found is that the weeds have started growing, which was a requirement for deciding the timing of the sonar treatment. So,
Red, is this the first time that you've actually gone out with them in the same boat?
in the same boat, yes. Last year, I followed Samantha as she went around in her boat, and I followed it just to become familiar with the process. But this year, I was the chauffeur, and I drove them around. And that's not for the pre-survey. Will still be done in their boat with their equipment. But for today, it was really just familiarizing Dominic with the lake, talking about sample points. We had put in the proposal that we would add sample points. Actually, I was mistaken in how many sample points there were in the third and the fourth basin. There were actually more points than I expected, than I thought there was. So, but we would still probably add a couple more sample points to hit corners of that aren't covered with today's 30-point list. But yeah, so today, we did want to confirm that the weed growth has started. You don't want to do the sonar too early, but I think we found enough weed activity started today that by the time the 27th comes around, they'll be in full bloom. Basically all three invasive weeds. And Dominic will get me copies of the postings by the end of the month and a letter. So I have to reach out to the two newspapers, I believe, the Stow Independent and whatever the Hudson one is, and get something posted there. David, do we put that information on the website?
Yes, we can, yes, we have,
So we'll have a letter to post on the website,
right.
and we'll post in the newspapers, and I'll get, 30 or so copies of the postings to put up on trees, and I'll graciously accept volunteers.
Mhm.
Last year, we divided it
And
up.
we'll
so
email.
Yeah.
Each person did a few trees in their area.
Yep.
I'll be
Um,
happy to help.
Yep, so will I over here, Red, so I can
Me too,
together
Ed.
this section.
I have a question on that. And I missed this in the orders of conditions. In previous orders of conditions, we didn't have to go back to the Concom to do a treatment. So I'm confused about why we did this time.
We have had issues with Solitude over the past few years, and that has led to some deeper engagement of the Concoms. I've looked through, I'm not sure we technically have to have them approve, but we judged it was worth it to get their input and to just make sure everybody is happy. I will say that we've really been very impressed. Solitude has done a complete 180 turn. And Chris, especially Chris, how frustrating it was with them before. Now that we have a 1-year agreement with conditions that they interact actively with Healthy Lake Boone Initiative, they participate in all this, and we really work with them as partners, not as just another lake on their list. And Dominic is the lead. He's a chief scientist. He knows what he's doing. He knows the lake. He's been here before, and he has gone above the call of duty to really show that Solitude is rethinking and reworking with us. So in that context, Conray, Red and I were thinking it's worth going to the Concoms just to make sure that we really are turning a new leaf here.
Okay, I just want to be a little careful about, it's the old problem with bureaucracies. Everybody gets to say no. No one gets to say yes. And you have to be careful of that as you create this stuff. So, we get our orders of conditions. We agree on what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. We don't need to go back every time we want to do something to get another approval. I think it's a great idea informing them and telling them. But if our OOCs don't require approvals, then we shouldn't frame it that way exactly. Only because you know how bureaucracies grow. So, good. Thank you for doing that, all of you.
Yes, thank you. And I agree that, part of this is rebuilding kind of the relationship, the partnership between us and Solitude and our Concoms. So I'm very glad that they did not give you pushback. And Red, you and Dominic did a great job. I know I was on the Stow one. I wasn't able to be on the Hudson one, but you guys did a great job representing it, and that there was basically no questions. So that was very well done.
Yeah, comment?
David, go ahead. Well, Chris is managing the meeting.
Yeah. I just wanted to note that if the treatment is to be 2 weeks from today, the notice should go into those newspapers this week to give them time to print it and for it to be distributed for people to actually read it.
Yeah.
That's fine, Dominic.
Newspaper.
Yeah, Dominic needs to get that letter out in the next day or two.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, he said he would get it to me by the end of the week. So
Okay.
who knows who I need to reach out to get these things posted?
Yeah,
Well,
it's so independent. It is.
Cindy Bremer.
Yeah, Cindy Bremer. She's very responsive, but it's best if you contact her right away. Let me give you her phone number. You ready?
Yeah.
978-897-7869. and I will email to you her email address. She can set aside, there's certain timing, I forget what it is, but she can set aside space for this.
Okay. And do
Yeah,
we have an account with them, or do they send us a bill,
No,
or how does that work?
you pay it and get reimbursed if that's okay with you.
Sure.
yeah, they seem to do nice little framed blocks with the official notices that are legally binding.
And do we have a contact with the Hudson newspaper?
I'm not aware of one.
Yeah, that the Hudson's no longer a requirement.
The Hudson Sun is no longer with us, I think.
Yeah.
There is
And in-
another regional thing that goes to Marlboro and Hudson and I think
I think-
Westboro or something. And
I think if you do the email to David Gray's distribution list, and you do the Stow Independent, and we post the notices, we're good.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
can put it onto we can ask Hudson to put it on the Hudson website, the town website. We can put it certainly on the Stow. We have access to do that ourselves.
Oh,
So I
if we email Joan, she'll post it in Hudson for
Yep.
us.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I would say actually the thing that will most reach people is getting it into the LBA email.
Absolutely.
Ray,
So
will you send me contact information for that Hudson person for the website?
Yes, I'll do that, Red. I got it.
Okay. It's the town clerk in Hudson, but yes, Joan.
Okay.
So on that same topic, right, I met with the Hudson FinCom a couple weeks ago now. So they looked at our budget and weed treatment and everything, and they I was there a lot longer than I thought I was going to be. They had a lot of questions, but at the end of the day, they approved our requests. And you know what that means is that the FinCom, the Financial Committee, will support our request at town meeting. Because
Good.
town, the final approval.
Okay. All right. So Dan, you've given Red the contact information he needs for
Yes,
Stow.
I just sent it.
I will, once I'm off here, I will get you the Hudson contact. And then I agree with folks. I mean, it really shouldn't take much at all for them to create the notice. It's pretty much, mostly cut and paste. But
Especially
really-
for the sonar, yeah.
yeah, we really do need that super quickly, so that it can get up with with the amount of advance notice that is required by the order of conditions.
Thanks, Red.
I'll reach out to Cindy tomorrow.
Great.
And
Excellent. Okay, so anything else?
Yeah,
So-
next is I'm sorry,
I'm
the
sorry.
Healthy Lake Boone Initiative.
So right now it's targeted Red for 427. That's their thinking.
27.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And they don't need to put any barriers in place or anything, or will they for this one?
They will not.
Okay.
The barrier stuff is, we haven't done that in a very long time.
Yep.
That was the very first time we treated it, and it was a real issue. But no, we don't do that. We haven't done that in years.
Okay.
And Red, I just sent you Joan's email.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
you just took my action, so yay.
I have two screens. I can do two things at once.
All righty. Okay, so yes, Healthy Lake Boone Initiative. Dan.
Yeah, so I'd like to keep this as brief as we can because I don't want to take up too much time, but we have been making very important progress on this. We're nearing actually the end of our 2-year grant, if you can believe that. It ends at the end of June, by which time we will have completed all of our data collection analysis. The recommendations that come out of this are a set of ideas that then over the long run we need to implement, and essentially sort of like Boone Association, continues its role, but now without the grant to support that. So the contractor, Brown and Caldwell, has now completed their technical review, and we're going to present. We will at some future LBA meeting, LBC meeting, we will present this in more detail, and I think we need to set aside some time for that. But you know, their report it's remarkable how much we've learned about the lake, about the dynamics of water flow, about how nutrients get into the lake, how they're stored in the sediments, released when there is some equalization of temperatures, and a number of other details. Now, from this come a question of action. What can we do to sustain the lake and to improve its health over time? In fact, I'll say that Kirk Westfall's comment is that, you know, the lake we're okay. You know, it could be worse. And I think that's encouraging. We certainly have to act, and we can't, you know, miss out on things. But it's not into deep eutrophication, and with action we can sustain the health of the lake. Now, the Rebecca Longval, who is the conservation agent in Bolton and is the person who's managed our volunteer effort, we put her in charge of collating all of the ideas and actions that came from our scientific experts, from, you know, study of the fields, the literature, from Solitude has been making recommendations, and so on. And we have this list of some, you know, 30 or so that I sent just before our meeting. I sent a copy to you. So obviously you haven't had a chance to look at it, but includes things like, for consideration, alum treatment, aeration programs, even the floating wetlands that can uptake some of the phosphorus. And I won't go through all the details, but now the steering committee, and actually Red's on the steering committee, Dick Gelbke is, Dave Gray is, the steering committee meets tomorrow night to review those based on some evaluation criteria. Issues such as, you know, effectiveness, cost, how much engages the community, and so on. So that's going to lead to a consolidated list of recommendations. We're going to present those to the respective Concoms, to the Lake Boone Commission, and then in June, at that June meeting, to the Lake Boone Association, soliciting any input, but really trying to make it into an action plan that then we distribute through printed forms, through, you know, presentations, and so on. And, you know, we don't have enough time to go through the whole list of them, but I want to just give you an update of where we are in that process.
Excellent.
And I don't know if Dick or Dave or Red has anything that you want to add as members of the, you know, oh, let me add one other thing, that in any case, we're going to continue our monitoring program. That will not be as in-depth. It won't have the same time as scientific analysis. We won't be working with Brown and Caldwell, though frankly, Kirk, who's been, you know, the chief scientist there, it's because he lives on the lake. I'm sure he's going to volunteer his time as a scientific expert. Dave Gray has agreed to lead that monitoring effort. We're identifying things that LBA will cover some costs if they're needed, but many of them we're able to do with existing equipment that we've acquired, and that we'll get with some remaining balance in the budget. And I don't know, Dave, if you want to add anything to that, but that public engagement will continue.
Yeah, you covered it well, Dan, with the one thing that we are considering having like an annual report card for the lake as to the health of the lake based on the additional monitoring that we do, how much phosphorus we're seeing in the lake, what the water clarity is, and a few of those variables that mean something to people, and we'll see if we're making progress.
So Dan, I have a question, if it's okay.
Yep.
A while back, we put in all those catch basins around the lake. I don't know, there were quite a few of them. Barbara did that a long time ago, or managed that. Did the studies we do have any, do we know if that worked? We know if it helped? are we intercepting nutrients? Do we look at, are they being maintained properly, stuff like that?
Yeah,
Dave?
I think there's no question that they intercepted a lot of the runoff. There are so many variables on this lake that it's really hard to pin it down to the exact results. This is a non-point source of pollution, and in the last couple decades, we've had a golf course installed. We've had a company making and packaging and shipping huge amounts of de-icer on the tributary of the of Monahan's Cove. So there's so many variables there. It's really hard to tell, what effect there's been. So we have seen changes over that period of time, some very significant changes. And the one we can really point at is that de-icer in the lake. The lake is 3 times as salty as it was 25 years ago.
So does that mean that the golf course, part of their OOC was to do monitoring of the stream that comes down to the lake? Did we ever get that data?
I think we got it for a couple of years, but they only measure it once in August. But they were very, very helpful in identifying exactly what fertilizer they use and its composition and the amount they put on each green and tee-off spot. And it's very conservative on the phosphorus. It's almost all nitrogen. So I think they are doing a good job, and we're taking samples up there too. We can go in that railroad bed and get the flow right when it leaves the golf course and goes under the culvert for the railroad tracks. So we can nail them if they're doing something.
Yeah, I think our monitoring is actually more in depth than they were supposed to do by their order conditions anyway. So, and we have full control over that. But I think your point's well taken that they really are being very conservative in what they apply.
Thank you.
So one question, and then maybe mostly to Dave, is some of the recommendations coming out of, I know you're meeting to kind of go through those, but do you expect some of those to be key points in the Gazette and the LBA annual meeting, that will have things that we can really be talking to the homeowners about?
Yes, I think we will. I'm not sure if it'll be ready for the Gazette or not, but it will definitely be ready for the meeting. And I think we'll probably follow up with a second issue specifically on the Healthy Lake Boone initiative, because part of that whole program was public outreach and connecting with the residents.
Excellent.
I think Dick Gelbke had his hand up there too.
Well, just a comment. I mean, I only go back to like the 50s and 60s. And I have looked at a lot of the reports and have been involved in some in the 80s and 90s. There's absolutely no question, but this has been in depth, and that's not a pun in the lake, report, and has done far more and pulled together more stuff and more solid stuff than we've ever done before. It's been just absolutely wonderful and very defensible about some of the ideas coming up. So it's been just wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for saying that, Dick. And I think we are actually quite fortunate to have many people around the lake with considerable commitment and expertise. I mean, obviously, Dick, your background, I mentioned Kirk, Red, you're handling this part now. Dave, your expertise. Conrad, you've been, knowing about this for years. And so I think everybody's contributing to try to make this into a solid foundation. As I say, that the grant itself paid for all this study. It does not pay for implementation. We're looking for implementation that is not a break the bank. On the other hand, it also lays the foundation for future grant proposal, either through this same program or others, for other things that might contribute.
I have a lot of technical questions that probably is about the right time to answer.
Yeah.
A couple of recommendations, like where do we get fresh water to add to the lake? That was kind of interesting. The other question I have on that specifically is, I understand that phosphorus does not move through groundwater, that the sand it binds to the, something or other in the sand. So when I saw all those groundwater things intercepting phosphorus, it was kind of not my understanding. My understanding was groundwater, when it goes through the sand will actually bind the phosphorus somehow. But I'm not an expert on that.
Yeah,
But anyways,
yeah, sand does not bind it, but other things in the soil will tie it up, particularly iron. But eventually it gets saturated. Eventually it gets saturated with phosphorus if it's the path from the septic system to the lake. And so eventually, when all that ground is saturated, phosphorus will get in there. So it's a matter of time.
well, thank you for all the effort.
Now, when we were doing the RFP for the weed treatment, somebody presented an idea, I don't know if Chris or somebody did, about having a single consolidated meeting of the two conservation commissions and the LBC. LBC would run the meeting, sponsor it, but that representatives of the two conservation commissions would come together so that we could have a single meeting where we can go in depth for any questions like you raised, Conray, and also to really look at the priority recommendations. I think we were going to do that. We actually will do that for relating to the weed treatment as part of that. But I think here it really would make sense, and I just want to find if you agree, Chris and Conray, and if so, we should probably work on scheduling something maybe during May.
So I'm maybe a little lost. So when you say a meeting for this with Concom's, a meeting on the outcome of the Healthy Lake Boone initiative?
Yes.
On the
It would
recommendation.
be we now have completed our science report, so it would certainly go over that. We will by then have at least some kind of narrowing of our recommendations. And we'd like to make sure we're getting the input that, whatever input you experts might have, and the Concoms. And also for anything that might end up being a policy that a Concom has to approve, if there is such a thing, we want to make sure that they're involved in this.
We did that in the past. We had to do that in the past, the distant past, where I forget what the technical term was, but we held meetings before we did our first treatments. And we did all the things you're talking about, and the Concoms were invited. They were very contentious meetings. They were not fun to chair, but we did them because we did them as part of the whole overall process of getting that first approval for drawdown and weed treatment. So we've done it in the past, and it's a good idea. The question is, how do you position it? It's the old, is it an FYI meeting? We want to inform people. Are we looking for feedback? If we get feedback, what are we going to do with it? All those issues come up.
Yeah, I guess my sense is I've added it as a new business thing for us to think about. I think we as a commission, or at least commissioners, we need to, the rest of us has to go through and see what those recommendations are, because we haven't really done that, and kind of see what they involve, and then that may make it more clear who we need to involve in a further discussion or not. So I feel a little blind right now to saying who all we need to set up a meeting and whether they're going to be approvers or they're just FYIs. I think that's something for us to discuss once we truly have seen what those recommendations are, where we feel like there's particular action plans that we should be pursuing, and then how do we make sure we pave the path correctly for those action plans.
Yeah, I guess I think of it, thanks for those. Those are all important points, Chris. I think of it as being a little bit earlier in that process. I think of it as an informational meeting that is early enough in the process that If there are any concerns about any potential recommendations or any additional ideas, they can come on the table. It would not be a meeting where we're advocating a certain solution or we need approvals from anybody. It's to make sure that when we do meet, that everybody's got the same technical base of understanding of the nature of the lake, and that the, the 8 or 10 or something ideas that seem to emerge from the steering committee, that they're put forward for some discussion, but not for, at this point, approvals. At least that's the way I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, I
Because
think
otherwise,
right, just
we have to
so
do the
again, so
same thing with
I know.
each of them separately, and that just gets overwhelming.
So I guess what I'm just trying to line up, are you thinking that that's involving, for example, Pam and Kathy, not necessarily the whole like an official meeting of Concom? It's just pulling in representation from Concoms to have the discussion. And I know they've been pretty active with your work already. Is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking?
Well,
Or
in
you're
fact,
thinking literally?
Well, Pam and Kathy are actually already members of the steering committee. So fortunately, they've been involved and active. And as I recall, the when this came up, they were thinking that they would have some kind of representatives of the respective Concoms identified to be part of this meeting, a sort of on behalf. So it wouldn't be a formal Concom meeting of each of the towns, but their representatives. In fact, Emily Wilder, who's on the Hudson Concom, is also on our steering committee. So we've got some contact there, but it sort of, would have, let's say, a couple of people from each of the Concoms or something. I mean, I guess so. What I'm really trying to what we're really trying to do here is build engagement on a sufficient depth to of these key organizations to be able to think about these issues and not just sort of go back to fundamental questions, and also to avoid doing the same cycle 3 times with each different group.
at some level, Dan, when we have our meetings, the public comment version of our meeting is a request for input from the public. And that would include the Concoms. And if they had issues they want to bring up with us, there's a mechanism for them to do that. I like your idea of having a public information meeting, but my experience so far has been no one shows up. But because unless there's something controversial going on, it's really hard to get people motivated to come to those meetings. So,
Yeah,
Okay, we'll certainly have it as a topic for new business. As I said, I think I at least need to look through what those recommendations are and feel a little bit more context here. And then we can talk about, is it, just making them aware, Concom's aware that we're going to discuss in detail and would like their, like some representation from them at a future LBC meeting, or if there's going to be a public outreach that from a Healthy Lake Boone initiative perspective here, that we would participate in that, how we need to go forward. So.
well, so why don't I appreciate the hesitancy here. So why don't I also do a follow-up with Pam and Kathy to ask how, from their perspectives, they would like to handle this kind of shared discussion.
That sounds good.
And I think we do need to be clear of whether it's approval or information.
It's not approval.
Well, we need to make sure we steer clear of that.
Right.
yes, Red,
Because
you're
there's certain
there.
people that would love to turn it into approval.
That's correct.
So, all right, that sounds good. So I think, are we through with that agenda item? We've covered refill.
Yep. Thank you for all the time we spent on it.
All right, thank you for all the information. All right, last big thing is just kind of our planning for starting the boating season. So I think I'm gonna kind
Pretty
of
much
Conrad
me,
a little bit.
yeah. I have not taken the shrink wrap off our boat yet. Probably next week that'll happen. And then I've got some new I've got new seats for it. They were given to us. But
That's excellent.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
So that's excellent.
Yeah, so, you know, I'll get the shrink wrap off of that. I will probably get the buoys in the lake this week using my pontoon boat. It's a lot easier to put them in the spring when they're clean than it is to take them out in the fall when they're dirty. So I'll probably start putting the buoys in if it ever warms up a little bit. I just haven't wanted to been out there in cold and windy conditions. We need one new light, which I'll order. Chris has confirmed that the 2 at her end work and the 5 at my end work, 4 work and 1 doesn't. So we'll get them all. I should get them all in by, in the next week. We, in terms of motors, the boat rather, Hudson FinCom approved our request for financing for a new motor. So if Stow also approves it, then we've got to send some bids out. It's an under $10,000 purchase. So the requirements for that are much easier than over $10,000 purchase. So I would send out a request for a bid from, at least two places locally, and see what they can do for us. So once we have town meetings and approval to get the money to be spent next summer, then we'll have to go through that process of getting the new motor. The boat itself, as far as I know, I won't know. I'll take the shrink wrap off it to take a good look at it.
Okay. So if you need help with putting buoys in, Conrad, reach out. I'm happy to help out if I'm home.
Okay, sounds good.
And I'm just wondering if we want to because we kind of traditionally have at least one light have an issue during the season, whether we want to this year, before this budget, period, our current budget is over. If we want to just, get an extra 1 or 2,
I'll get 2. I can, it's not that big a deal. Well, it's a budget issue. I'll order 2. If I can get the ones, there's 2 different versions of that light, one of $40 and one of $70. So the $40 ones work fine if they're available. So, and of course, that was last year's prices with inflation at now, 8.5% as of today.
Yeah.
I don't know what the new numbers will be.
Yeah.
But I'll order 2 of them today, tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'll start putting stuff back in the water.
Okay. And our sense is we don't need any new buoys this year. Is that correct, Conrad?
I think we're good on buoys. We've got chain,
Yep.
plenty of anchors, So
Excellent.
I think we're in good shape everywhere.
Okay.
When I need stuff, I just go up to Gelpy's shed and figure out what I can find anyway.
Yeah, sure. I was
Right.
waiting for that one.
All right. Okay. Anything else on that? Dan, anything from you?
Nope. Thank you for doing all that.
Yeah.
I have one other issue there, and that's, are you guys going to get the safety course so we can teach you how to use the boat?
Yes. And I know I said that before, but really do. I mean, I would love to do this. There are other things that precluded, but absolutely.
You've been busy with the stuff you've been doing, which is probably more important. But, anytime you guys want to learn the boat, I'll take you out anytime you want, pretty much, as long as we're all around. So.
Can I wait until you have unshrink wrapped it?
No, I want you right on top of the shrink wrap.
There you go.
Hey, when I was a kid, we used to drive around the lake with a cover on the boat and our head sticking out.
So that's who it was.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about a different lake, a little bit bigger lake up in New Hampshire. I grew up on a much bigger lake.
All righty. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So we are moving on to old business. And since the beginning of the meeting, I know I said there was one thing we were going to cover in old business, Dan, and I've now forgotten what that was.
But that was about the annual report and
Annual,
yeah,
not the annual report, but the archiving. Got
yeah.
it. All right. So so every year that's just a responsibility of the commission. Every kind of commission and department is kind of to have an archive that we provide to both the towns of all of the the official documentation from the year. So that is certainly the agendas and the approved meeting minutes, but it's also, kind of all the other miscellaneous things we've, letters, for example, that we've made decisions on, contracts, all that kind of stuff should really be a part of that. So anything we've addressed. So Dan, thank you. You've put together some elements of that, and I haven't had
Yeah, I did. I went through and made sure that we have all the meetings and the minutes and the agenda items, which are the easiest part. They're all in PDF. The minutes are all signed. They're the official versions. And I have forwarded that for all the meetings done during last year. I forwarded that to you. In addition, I went through all of the emails that you sent during the year to Conrad and me that had attachments.
Okay.
And I have put all those attachments into a folder that I've also sent to you.
Okay.
Now, I think you will need to review those attachments to see if there are any that you just sent because it was a draft and we need to make sure that we just post the final version or something like that.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that there are documents that you have that you finalized that I don't have a copy of. But I think I've given to you everything that I was able to ferret out. And I hope that at this point, if you can use that as the basis for what you need to do as the chair.
Okay. All right.
Comment?
Yes.
I know typically annual reports are an afterthought and, you just get the damn thing out of the way. But it turns out to be extremely useful. For example, when I get around to writing the 200th anniversary of the LBA, looking back at annual reports, and Connie was good enough to give me a lot of stuff previously, some of which was intelligible, others, there were gaps and so forth. But it is really useful for any future somebody who's trying to write a history of the lake. That stuff is very useful.
Yeah. And Dick, we do the annual report every year, and we've already submitted for last year our annual.
Yep.
Last year. Yeah. Yes. For last year. We have submitted that to both towns. So that is something we have done. And then this is the archive of our official documents.
Right, and very helpful. So thank you for that. And just a quick question. Is that a cattail or is that an eel? Flipping around on the screen.
Exactly. It's a furry eel.
Oh, boy.
So, all righty. So do we have any other? So yes, I have that action item, Dan, to take a look at what you sent over. And we'll add to that. Nobody has actually asked us, they're not bugging us yet for it. So we're kind of ahead of it, which is good.
Good.
All right. Any other old business we need to address? All right. So new business, the notations that I have from today is getting on a future agenda, just a discussion about sort of courtesy quiet time in the mornings before 8 a.m. A kind of follow up to get police, safety officer, rec commission together with us to have a discussion about all those topics, the boat rentals, the safety officer activities, and the safety or police boat, whichever it happens to be. So they have that on. And then I think we have one that we just want to have a more detailed HB Healthy Lake Boone Initiative report out. So a time focused on that.
Okay.
Anything else that's come up that we
Well, the dam work, I don't know I think there was an outstanding question of when and how we discussed that. A presentation by the engineer or the highway department. It's not our domain of work, but it obviously impacts on the lake. So I don't know if I'm trying to remember. Were you, Chris, gonna follow up?
You were gonna follow up, and I can, but I thought you were following up with Denise because we didn't want to step into that arena.
Yeah.
It really isn't our role to step into that. So I don't know if she would support a public meeting, or they're going to have one, or how they want to do that.
With Chris, what we need on that is simply information. So we're a conduit of information to the
Right.
lake residents.
Right.
So if they're gonna let a contract, just information stuff that we can publish through our different mechanisms. You know, because I'll give you a very fast story. I don't know how familiar you are with Shirley Reservoir up in Lunenburg and Shirley, but they had the same issues with their dam. The contractor screwed up and lost the dam in the process of fixing it. So for the next 3 years, they had no lake. So, you know, if they're going to start working on the dam, there's a lot of people would like to know that at least. And we have no input about what's going to happen, but at least we should have information on what is going to happen.
Right.
And we can pass that along.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris, I'm sure that question will come up at the LBA meeting. So if we can put a statement in the Gazette with your comments from the Commissioner's Corner, just information that really comes from other sources. But if you have just a couple sentences to say what the status is, that would be a big help.
Yeah, so I'm looking through my emails that I sent. I think I checked in with Kathy about that, and I also believe I contacted Steve, but I think after that I must have dropped the ball on trying to see who and when and check in with Denise. Should I continue to do that, or Chris, do you want to take that lead, or how do you want to handle this?
I think if you're willing to, I would say since you've already reached out to some of the other folks there.
Okay.
If you're not comfortable with that, then I will do that.
Yeah, why don't I'll let you know what I'll follow up and see what happens.
Okay. Sounds
That
good.
leaves us with our next meeting, I think.
It does. So I think we're going to have to meet in May. I don't know that we need to necessarily meet early in the month. We certainly need to meet at a point where, probably before Memorial Day, when it starts getting busier on the lake.
17th or 18th, maybe?
Yeah.
Tuesday or Wednesday? Now, just as an FYI, guys, I'll be out of town from the 5th of May through the 9th of, through the 15th, 5th and 15th, I'm gone. I'll be looking at email, but not very often.
Okay.
So then I guess there's kind of an open question, which we haven't resolved yet, of whether we're going to have, what kind of meeting or what we'll have regarding the Healthy Lake Boone, because that was an open question here. So maybe we should say as our default scenario, at a minimum, we want to have information for the Lake Boone Commission, and we may or may not include others from the other Concom's. And if so, it would help if that were, I'm thinking maybe that week of the 16th through the 19th. That's after Conray's back.
Yeah, he was suggesting the 17th or 18th.
17th or 18th. Yeah, those would be good.
So, Dan, what's the urgency on that? There's 43 items on that list.
I would prefer to have a chance to talk with the Lake Boone Commission before we talk with the Lake Boone Association annual meeting.
Okay, 17th or 18th. Remember, that list is 43 items right now.
Our what?
That proposed list has 43 items on it.
Yeah, we're not going to present 43 items. I want that we're going to end up, I'm thinking, with, a half a dozen or something.
Okay,
That the steering committee is going to go through and say, based on these priorities, thank you, Rebecca, for collating everything that ever came up. And we've gone through that and said that guess what? 10 of them are impossible, 5 of them are terrific, and a few more we'll see if we can get funding for. That's kind of what I'm expecting.
Good.
But we're going to have the steering committee meeting tomorrow. I don't want to sort of preclude what predetermine what they're going to come up with, but that's what I expect. That it's going to be a handful of these, but also making sure you understand what science information we found out. Have Kirk presumably do a presentation.
excellent. Thank you. So
Okay.
17th or 18th, which day?
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yep.
I think I have to look at my calendar, but I suspect the 17th is better for me. I sometimes have a Wednesday night
Okay.
commitment.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
17th is
And
the-
Dave, I know you sometimes have that. The Tuesday works for you, right, Dave?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, the Wednesday could be a problem.
Okay. And Red, does that look
Yeah,
possible?
I can do Tuesday. Wednesday is a problem for me.
Okay.
It's
So
golf day.
17th is a good one. All right. So we'll have to see if we can get Stow Police and Laura lined up for that.
Yep.
Just,
Okay.
we don't necessarily need to take Mike's time. We just need a status of what's going on.
Yeah, but I have a feeling there's going to be questions, especially if there is a safety officer. So
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather at least if there is a safety officer, I think it would be helpful if we could have him or her participate.
I agree. I mean, I have a million concerns over that whole thing.
Yep.
I've just seen what happens on the Charles. We're much microcosm of that, but if that safety boat's got a 90-horse engine on that old boat, that's, non-trivial thing to drive.
There is no apparent plan.
Correct.
I think we don't know that, so that's why we have to. Certainly not one we're aware of. So, okay, so I think we are at our
Looking for a motion to adjourn. So moved.
to adjourn.
A second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Hey, and Dave Gray, can I give you a follow-up call after this? I'll
Yeah.
call you.
That'd be fine, okay.
All right.
Good evening.
I'm really glad to hear that there'll be 2 new motors on the lake that are presumably 4-stroke, and we're not pumping all that oil in.
Well,
From-
wait a minute, Dave. The LBC boat is 4-stroke and has been since '04.
Oh, okay, the police boat hasn't been. Yeah,
The police boat is the bad one.
yeah. That'll be good to get rid of it.
Yes.
All right.
Not only that, it would be nice to have a motor that runs on it. I know we bought, our current motor was bought in '04.
Okay,
That's when I upgraded the boat from the old 2-stroke. Well, no, but this goes back several boats.